Welcome to the Crumbling. We are a podcast about holy shit, we're living through a coup and how not to, oh my fucking god, or I'm going to piss myself. I'm one of your hosts, Sophia Flores. I'm here with my co-hosts.
I'm Andrew Hillary, a comedian out of Pittsburgh who's also an ice cream man, which I would argue is very important.
And I'm Davin, a normal guy who really likes ice cream.
One of my best customers over there. Mm-hmm.
Hey, make sure you have my fudgy pop tomorrow.
Look, I determine the inventory. You get no say. I'm sorry. Take it or leave it.
So we're also joined here tonight by a wonderful journalist and an author, because you get the title of an author when you write a damn book, Kim Kelly. Super happy to have you on. This should be a wonderful time. Kim has written for a bunch of different publications, Vice, The New Republic, also has a book out called Fight Like Hell, and has another one coming out, but we'll talk more about that. Anything else you want to say to introduce yourself?
My favorite ice cream flavor is butter pecan, which I think might be controversial.
Butter pecan, here's the thing. That is actually, I can see that's a pretty good flavor.
Solid flavor.
I will say, though, I say I'm an ice cream man. I am a frozen treat distributor, okay? You're not getting scoops of anything from me, okay? You got SpongeBob, Bomb Pop, Strawberry Shortcake. That, stuff, it's all wrapped up. So
Swirl with Jimmy's?
I'm so sorry. No Jimmy's, no swirls,
Jimmy's.
No soft serve.
You fraud.
It's all pre-wrapped, pre-packaged. I'm a fraud. I'm so sorry.
I thought you said this was serious, Sophie. It's like everybody's depressing. Like, no, this is full-on ice cream talk. I am here for it. Everyone's regional accents are going wild right now.
The thing is, if you want to sell like prepared food kind of ice cream, whether it's soft serve or scoops, what you need to do is install water tanks, and you have to have like 3 separate sinks in the truck. You have to have all this health department stuff. If you only sell prepackaged stuff, you don't even have to like have seatbelts in the truck. There's literally like, I don't think there are vents on like the dashboard. They're not connected to anything. I drive like a 1985. Can't believe it's still running.
I can't believe it's not butter.
No, there's some butter in there. It's actually mostly tape. There's so much tape holding together my ice cream truck, you wouldn't believe it.
I don't think I've ever seen an ice cream truck with a sink or anything vaguely even gesturing at safety or cleanliness. But then again, I do live in Philadelphia, and we are special.
Well, it is a state law, so it's definitely the same thing.
But like Pennsylvania and Philly are different. We're our own little thing.
Yeah.
You don't mess with Philly.
We are so close to West Virginia over here in Pittsburgh. You know, I will agree, there are some differences.
Yeah, you have mountains. We have New Jersey.
Yeah. We are somehow have quite a few residents that think we were below the Mason-Dixon line over here. I couldn't tell you why.
Oh, I'm from South Jersey. They know they do the same thing. I have a cousin who got suspended from high school for driving around the parking lot with a big old Confederate flag hanging off the back of his truck. I think he was speeding. That's probably the only reason he was suspended.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You said you're in Jersey? Jersey is not a real place.
I live in Philly. I'm from South Jersey, which is like its own very specific area of Kentucky.
It's crazy that Pennsylvania is surrounded on both sides by places that people say are not a real place. Like, many people say Ohio, not real. Now I'm hearing New Jersey, also not real. What the hell is Pennsylvania doing?
Being far bigger than necessary. Sorry.
No. No, it's fine. I was going to say that Ohio should still be part of Connecticut, but we don't have to talk about that. Ohio was historically at one point part of Connecticut.
Kind of imperial nonsense. What gerrymandered?
The states used to go long across the continent, basically. And so Ohio is actually like level with Connecticut. It used to be the Western Territory of Connecticut.
That's what happened to Pennsylvania.
I think we should take it over again.
You can have it.
Yeah, in fairness, no one's fighting for that. Buckeyes are sick.
I want Cleveland.
You
Cleveland
would.
rocks.
I hear Cleveland's a dope city. Can we also get Cincinnati?
Yeah, we can take Cincinnati.
You're going to have to mess with the whole pizza.
You're taking the whole state, okay? You're not just getting parts, all right? It's nothing, okay?
It's either the whole Ohio or none.
Cincinnati, you're getting Akron. You're getting You're getting Dayton, Ohio. You're getting Canton, Ohio, the NFL Hall of Fame. Let's go. That's yours now. Hope you like it.
Fuck yeah, I do.
Yale.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get started with the podcast.
Hell yeah. Let's some questions.
This is the podcast. It's ice cream and state slander.
Yeah. We're going to just talk about Fudgy the Whale.
He made a great cameo yesterday. We're talking about celebrating divorce. Great divorce cake.
Fudgy the Whale is the best divorce cake. Anyway, so Kim, another thing
we had to be there.
We talked about yesterday, but I wanted to have you tell the audience what got you started in journalism in the first place.
Well, journalism's a strong word for what I do. I am real. I'm just an idiot. I come out of the music world, right? I've wanted to be a music journalist really as long as I wanted to do anything. And once I realized that was something that you could do, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I somehow pulled it off as a girl, then woman from New Jersey who's really into heavy metal, which none of those really engender success, but it worked out okay. I started writing for school paper and then the county paper and little zines and webzines and all that when I was like 15. And just kind of kept going, writing for other websites and magazines, Internet Metal Maniacs, all of these kinds of things. Aggressively early 2000s type music journalism situation. In the course of that, I went to college for a while and then I went on tour. I was a touring merch person and a roadie and worked at labels, booked shows. I did basically everything but have even a modicum of musical talent. And all of that sort of ended up in me getting a job at Vice in 2014 as the heavy metal editor. And that was kind of the pinnacle of, I was like, I cannot really envision this going much further. So sick. Nailed it at 27. And really the only reason my focus shifted so much towards labor, towards all of the work I've been doing the past 6 to 8 years, it's because we unionized at my workplace, Vice. And, I come from a union family. I know that unions are a good thing. I never thought that I would get a chance to be involved in them, because I wanted to write about death metal on the internet. I wasn't a construction worker or a steel worker or a teacher like the people in my family. But when we got the chance to organize, we took it and I got super, super, super involved. Went to all the meetings and the bargaining sessions and the committees and obviously the happy hours, and it just kind of took over my life in a nice way. And that started, that burgeoning interest really started to be reflected in the work I was doing. Like, obviously my day job was still covering heavy metal, but I started to try and find ways to kind of shoehorn either union stuff or just my own politics into the coverage I was doing in ways that were fun for me and incredibly irritating to internet Nazis. That's a whole other thing.
It's all about finding balance,
It's the yin and the yang of liking anything as a lady. So
that's really cool though. So you learned how to write by writing about the shit that you liked. And then as life came at you, as it tends to do usually pretty fast, you were like, oh, well, I have the skills to be able to tell people this story that is now what I'm doing. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I'm so interested in this. I feel like writing about metal and writing about labor are so similar, not just in my brain, but in reality in various ways. Even I could write a dissertation on it if I had, not dropped out of college, but there's a lot of overlap. Whether it's going from having to memorize every jagoff who played in a Swedish death metal band from 1984 to 1993 to memorizing all the goddamn acronyms that I have to throw at people in the course of my reporting now. It's really just that sense of finding something that rules and makes your life better and is this global phenomenon with an incredibly rich, fascinating history that for some reason most people don't know anything about. It's like, as much as I wanted to evangelize for like darkened nocturne slaughter cult, I want to evangelize for people to learn about labor history and about their rights to organize.
That's really cool. Because I was never into like heavier stuff. I always really liked like pop punk and emo music. And I never got really into writing, but if I had written about those kind of bands, the only thing I would be qualified to talk about now would just be sex crimes.
Well, talking about the internet Nazis, as my political consciousness blossomed, I got when I was living in New York, I was really, I was in, anarchist collective, was really involved in anti-fascist organizing. Turns out knowing how to spot a Nazi on their album cover cover, their liner notes, their t-shirt was like a very transferable skill into being able to identify Nazis that listen to other stuff. So it's been, heavy metal really is the gift that keeps on giving, and not just the PTSD it gave me.
Speaking of yin and yang, fun story about, hating Nazis in music. Whenever I was like 13, I saw the movie SLC Punk and I was like, that's who I am. And so I got a can of spray paint and I spray painted like an anti-swastika thing on a tree in my backyard. I was 13. I was like, I have a spray paint. I'm scared to do real vandalism. I'm going to fuck up this tree. So I did the swastika with the thing across it, like whatever. Years later, my dad brought it up and he's like, well, you had that Nazi phase when you were a teenager. And I was like, what? He's like, you spray painted a swastika on the tree in our backyard. I was like, did you not notice So apparently, not only did my dad not realize like what I was doing, but also just didn't bring up the fact that he thought I was a Nazi.
Oh man, SLC Punk was such a load-bearing movie. That and Empire Records and Detroit Rock City.
Oh my God,
were like
every
my
day is
trinity.
Rex Manning Day, if you ask me.
Oh man, those are the only sort of like alt-focused movies that I could find at that age. Because I was from the goddamn forest. We didn't have a Blockbuster. I had like friends with older brothers.
That'll work.
Yeah, it really just sent me in a real specific direction.
And every choice you have made has brought you to be right here, right now. And for that, we are grateful.
What a great tied it all up with a bow. Look at that. Real podcast hosting. Poor Sophie is like, what is this nonsense?
No, I'm good. It's nice to not have to say many things.
Oh, yeah,
I want to stop talking and allow you to continue to conduct an interview. However, I have been cursed with the inability to do that.
I was told the other day that I am an okay cat wrangler for the way that we run this podcast.
Who said that? And how were they single?
It was the girl that works at one of the local coffee shops near my job.
Okay. There was a second part to my question. It's fine. Let's just move on. Okay. We've got questions.
So your book, Fight Like Hell, has been really popular in labor circles. And I'm sure we've got some folks who are listening that haven't read it, like who are, just fans of the podcast. We're just learning about your work tonight. What would you tell someone about the book to get them to check it out?
I've been working on that specific elevator pitch for like 5 years now. And basically I describe it as like a working people's history of labor, like the stories of all the people that got left out. And it's not as if we're dealing with a robust educational program nationwide that teaches people about labor history in general, but some people at least have heard of Cesar Chavez or Walter Reuther or hopefully Eugene Debs, but there's so many other people that have been part of the movement since way before and then way after those folks were active. And so many of them were either outright erased or ignored or red-baited out of the movement or just didn't get the attention they deserved because they were women or they were queer or they were trans or they were communists or they're the wrong color or the wrong identity. Like just like classic American history stuff, But in this movement, the labor movement, where if you're paying attention, at least, we're taught to think of it as this kind of liberatory or at the very least progressive movement where we care about other people, we care about workers and people different from us. It's like, well, why doesn't everyone know about Maria Marino or Ben Fletcher, Emma Taniyuka, or even Dorothy Bolden? Like, there's so many pivotal figures that people don't know about. And I wanted to use the opportunity that I had sort of stumbled into to write about them because my biggest goal for the book was to pull together all these cool, interesting stories and put it in one place so people could read them. And B, I wanted to take that sort of compendium and ensure that pretty much anybody who picked it up could find themselves in it, could find an example of someone who did have their background or did have their identity, who did look like them and sound like them, who did something incredible against really high odds and either pulled it off or didn't pull it off, but still tried, and then show how other actions and other people built on what they did just to kind of emphasize how important these people truly were, even if they don't get statues or long Wikipedia entries or get mentioned in Intro to U.S. History in high school. They were important, they mattered, and we owe them. Like, this book could have been so much longer. Like I turned in 20,000 more words than they asked for. So just imagine if I was a different kind of writer, this could be the first volume and like 10 more of these Johns. But so yeah, I did that, wrote that in 2020, and then it came out, and through some incredible stroke of luck, people are not sick of it yet. It's a huge win.
Well, we know that you're working on a new book, one that you've got coming out, which, from what we know, is a labor book targeted at youth audiences. What inspired you to write this? And is there do we have any updates on when it's coming out, or when we can expect it, or pre-order it maybe?
It was a case of me accidentally giving myself homework, which is really how I end up doing everything. I was just thinking about it one day. I was like, man, people seem to like this book. That's really, really cool. A lot of those people are parents. What if I did a kids version? And this was before Elon truly ruined it, where I still was kind of a person on Twitter. I remember I just tweeted what if I did a kids version of this book? And I just went about my day. And then I checked later. I got a couple DMs from some of the publishers I'm friendly with, and people seemed kind of interested. And I was like, oh no, what have I done? I've done something. I have to call my agent and make sure I'm not in trouble. And I was like, but what if I did? And he's like, I can ask the publisher you're on already if they would like to let you do that. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, try that. And then they said yes, so then I had to do it, which is actually that ruled. I'm so happy I got to do that. And I didn't realize until after that a lot of the young readers editions of books that you see, of big popular books, there are people that write them that are not the original author. It is not necessarily common for someone to write the young reader's version of their book, which nobody told me. So I figured it out anyway. It was an interesting exercise trying to work out how to take something that had already been conceived as hopefully accessible and engaging and easily digestible, and kind of break it down for people that were younger or had less education, literal children. I think I did okay. It got some nice reviews already, and it comes out May 6th. It's extremely available for pre-order.
Well, that's exciting. So May 6th, it comes out, available for pre-order now. What's the title of it?
Fight to Win, Heroes of American Labor. I thought it would be funny to call it Fight Like Heck, and my publisher was
that is actually
no.
very cute. What the fuck?
That would be funny. That's such a good title.
I think it's really
It'd be
cute.
adorable.
But then they're like, maybe it's a little too cute. Just take it down a notch. I'm like, fine. And I already argued with him
Fight
about the
like
cover.
HE double hockey sticks.
I was like, the kind of parent that's gonna buy this would probably not sweat a light swear, but in this climate,
Is heck a swear?
hell? Oh, just general
No,
heck.
heck.
I don't think heck is
Yeah.
You're
I
the
think
most intensely homeschooled Christian of all time.
Yeah.
I think.
I do think heck is one of those words where if we say it even 2 or 3 more times, in this moment, it will lose all meaning to me. I've already said heck a couple times, and it's already starting to sound wait, is that even a word? Is this just a noise?
Yeah. It's like fudge. It's when I hear those, I'm like, oh, you're very innocent if you're saying that
Oh, yeah.
oh, fudge. What the heck? Oh, Phil Six is a good one.
I remember where I turned 5 years old, I proclaimed for myself that I was allowed to say hell. So I was going around what the hell is this? This is some hell stuff over here, And my parents were like, what are you even trying to do? What are you going for?
Oh my god. Oh.
I feel like I don't know what part of me is like that. Maybe because I wasn't allowed. I'm like, why are you allowed to swear?
Oh, as an ice cream man, kids know they can get away with it around me. And let me tell you, it is awesome. It is hilarious every time.
This person will never not be funny. It's one of those things you shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah, you get a 9-10-year-old that's a hard ass in their circle, and they come in and sup, motherfucker. I'm like, ah.
I love a small child that just swears at me.
Oh yeah, become an ice cream truck driver. It's one of the few places where
I don't know if I'm going to trade in my career for ice cream truck driving.
Look, you could make upwards of low 5 figures. Okay, look, I'm telling you. Approaching $1,000 a year. Okay,
No, my.
That's
No
not
tariffs on
true.
ice
I
cream
make
yet.
nearly that much in a month. It's fine. Everything's fine. Look, that's not a lot of money for those listening at home. It's fine. I don't like stuff. It's a blessing. I don't need that much money because I don't like stuff. But I do have to get a new set of blinds, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm coming to you specifically. Coming to Pittsburgh in June to do an event at the library.
Let's fucking go. Oh my gosh. You want to come out and do a ride along with me? That's it. I have zero supervision in the ice cream truck. You are literally welcome to come out for an afternoon with me. Or we could just hang out and like get some pizza or something.
I could sell books from the ice cream truck.
Okay, you can hawk your book to literal children while we're driving the ice cream truck. I'm not kidding.
I love that.
Okay, well, we have until
there's a skit
June.
there.
We'll circle back.
Okay, to implant the ideas of communism to the children's that I have to charge $4 for a popsicle to. It's great. Everything's great.
Oh God! Now that I'm thinking about ice cream, Kim, are there any big organizing efforts for specific industries or companies that you're following that are some big interest to you?
So my brain sort of shifted over into research mode for the next book, but there are a few things that I'm kind of always keeping an eye on. Last month, I went down to Miami to interview one of the directors for this worker center called Beyond the Bars that focuses on really just providing assistance and resources for formerly incarcerated people once they get out in terms of knowing their rights and organizing. They're doing a lot around temp work right now. And projects like that really appeal to me and really interest me because I'm just so mad all the time that the labor movement in general, or at least the organized labor movement, organized labor leadership will say, just kind of tends to forget that there are literally millions of people in jails and prisons in this country who are working, who are doing jobs for either very little or no pay and have no legal right to strike or unionize. And
well, Kim, how would a workforce being available to people who own companies that they do not have to pay anything approaching even close to the minimum wage, let alone a living wage, how would that be detrimental to the labor movement as a whole? It seems totally unrelated.
You know, funny you mention that because in Alabama last year, RWSU, Retail Warehouse and Department Store Union, who represent a ton of chicken plant manufacturing factories and various service work positions all around the South, they joined in a lawsuit with a couple of nonprofits and the Union of Southern Service Workers and a group of incarcerated and formerly incarcerated folks to sue the state of Alabama and their evil governor and a bunch of their top officials over what basically amounts to like a forced labor, contract labor scheme, where a lot of folks who are in prisons in Alabama are kind of loaned out to work at places like auto detailers or Burger King, fast food places. And they work those jobs, and that money, a big chunk of it goes to the state, goes to the prison, while they're working alongside other people that aren't incarcerated. And it's just it's a very clear scam. It's something that follows people once they get out of prison. It's a mess. I wrote about it for In These Times, but basically everything yeah, it's not great. But companies and bad people love using prison labor for things because you don't have to treat incarcerated people like people here.
And that's from my understanding, a boss's favorite thing to do is to not have to see their employees as humans. That's their shit. Like, bosses love to be like, that's not a human being. Fuck that.
Imagine if you knew that the person that you're yelling at and underpaying, then they had to go and live in a box once you're done with them. Right?
No, I'm starting to think this whole United States of America thing might not be all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, so I like
might
to keep
be a little bit of issues here.
Yeah, I like to keep an eye on prison labor. I like to keep an eye on organizing this happening in the sex work community and just like low-wage workers in general. The Union of Southern Service Workers, who I mentioned, they're one of my favorite organizing projects / unions right now because they're very much kind of IWW coded in a way. They make it very clear they're not interested in LRB recognition. They're not dealing with any of that. They focus on just organizing their members who are predominantly Black and brown women and other folks in low-wage jobs across the South, like Waffle House workers, other fast food workers.
Braver than the troops.
Yeah, literally. And like they're marching on the boss. They're having having protests, they're having strikes and walkouts, and they're winning stuff. And they're very explicit on their website that they're an anti-capitalist, anti-racist union that's worker-led. And it's just like, it makes me happy to see that, because when we have that happening, it makes the bullshit that certain other unions are up to just pierce my soul a little bit less.
Awesome. So just since you're, yeah.
I love that. I was like, we're going to get away from all the depressing stuff today. And I was like, nope. We are never going to not do depressing.
Oh, yeah. I contain multitudes.
So love us.
One
Aren't
thing.
the Philadelphia Whole Foods workers unionizing too? Or is that?
They did. They unionized.
did.
And then the company, which is run by demons, they refused.
Jeff? You're not talking about my boy Jeff like that, right?
Oh my God.
Jeffy B.
Jesus.
Jeffy B.
Oh, my God.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Look, if I still had my MySpace page, Jeff would be top 8.
Tom never lets down.
He sees us as cockroaches, but yeah, basically the NLRB's sort of Elon Musk and Trump ushered in implosion has kind of gotten in the way of what's going on with the Whole Food workers, because of course the company didn't recognize them, and it's a whole kettle of fish. But
it's like something like the NLRB has to have a certain number of members to do anything, and then Trump was like, well, we're just not going to fill the seat, fuck yins.
Yeah.
Something like that. Again, I said it earlier, but great country. Excellent system. No notes.
Like, it's like today or yesterday, I got the news broke that the Trump Doge, whatever the fuck, got rid of his agency called NIOSH, which is just like a humble little agency. Don't hurt no one. It does scientific research on like health and safety.
Sure does.
Like for coal miners and firefighters and construction workers and kids. And they just defunded the whole thing.
What the fuck?
And
And the people that do the stuff that I do.
Yeah, like literally, yeah, like all the people that are like, let's collect some data on the black lung crisis in Appalachia. The Trump administration is like, oh, no more jobs for you.
Wow. So I guess, we should have like worked this out before. I didn't realize before you were coming on that Kim, you are clearly suffering from TDS, Trump derangement.
Oh my God.
And, my heart goes out to you. I would like to live in a world where people weren't suffering with TDS, as you clearly are. And, I'll pray for you.
Jesus fucking Christ.
All right, living in a East Coast, very rich, famously safe and prosperous city like Philadelphia will do this.
Oh, you're a coastal elite. That's why.
Oh, yeah. Well,
We are
TDS
the top of the murder rankings.
because it comes from the 5G towers along the ocean. That's why the coastal elite, it's not a coincidence, okay? The 5G is strongest near the ocean.
It's because you got your vaccine. The microchips activated.
Right.
Disinformation or anti in this podcast.
Sometimes we can't figure it out.
It's
Listen, you gotta laugh through the crisis.
Andrew's just verbally shit posting for us.
Yeah.
I don't help.
The two of you are the cats that I wrangle, which I
am
appreciate.
actively sabotaging this podcast's reputation anytime that the microphone is in my face. So, it's good. What adversity builds strength.
Oh, I'm just here for the check. George Soros pays me a lot.
Man, he's behind this month.
You're getting paid?
No, we're not getting.
God damn it. All right. We need to move on.
The funding comes from my paycheck. Let's leave it alone. By the way, if you like what we're doing, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/the Crumbling Podcast, and pay for what we're doing. It helps. Hell yeah. Oh, shit. There's a link. Thanks. Anyway, so one thing I've noticed in the past few years is people really trying to build bridges between labor movements and other struggles, such as working against the genocide in Palestine or LGBTQ plus or racial justice or environmental justice issues. Some movements seem like they're successful in that, where you might have a lot of queer people or whatever working within the companies and at the union in specific, and people who are just open for more fights. We saw that with like a Starbucks workers union, which made a stand on a lot of issues outside of the organizing of its own workers, including on Palestine. But obviously there's going to be some industries where that's a lot more difficult. And this is notable in Connecticut, where some of us are based, because we have a lot of labor unions connected to the defense industry. If you wanted to start building towards getting folks from those industries involved, what kind of things might you suggest to the people organizing in them?
You make it personal, right? And this is one thing that I try and not call out, but sort of emphasize fairly directly when I get to talk to union crowds is that there's always going to be a contingent that thinks, all right, unions are meant to care about the bread and butter economic needs of their members, about wages and hours and benefits, maybe safety if you're lucky, like leave the rest of the other stuff for other people to deal with. And that approach has always really disappointed me and really kind of driven a lot of the issues within labor we've seen for the past couple centuries, where people are left out or are marginalized or are barred from joining the union or just let down, is that, yeah, wages and hours and benefits are very important. That's part of any good union contract. But every worker is a universe, right? The person you are at work, you are, yes, a worker, but you're also who you are. Like saying that, you know, racial justice isn't an issue, or abortion isn't an issue, or trans rights isn't an issue. Like that just erases every black and brown worker, every trans worker, every woman, everyone who isn't just that stereotypical straight white cis dude in a hard hat that every politician thinks is the ultimate avatar of American labor. And like, sure, they're there, bless them, they raised me, but the rest of us are here and have always been here. And I think if you're in a position where you're talking to workers in an industry that's maybe not necessarily inclined to feel like it's their problem to care about social issues, it's like, well, what about your coworker? Like, what about Jeff? Or what about Betsy? Like, this is what she has to deal with in her regular life. This is what she brings with her to work. This is what he brings with him to work. This is what they bring with them to work. Like, really just emphasizing the humanity and the identities of the workers in the union. I think that could go a long way towards showing people that have the privilege or like have the, you know, must be nice to are able to just not care, to be like, okay, well, all this stuff I'm not sure about, but you know, like Jeff sounds like this is really, it's impacting Jeff and I care about Jeff, or like this Betsy seems really upset about this, like maybe I can show up to that meeting, you know, just really personalizing these things I find does kind of cut through some of the ambivalence or some of the, you know, fuck you, I got mine that we see in these industries or in these spaces. Just showing people like, okay, even if all of this stuff doesn't impact you, it does impact people you work with and depend on to get your shit done or to keep you safe. So you should probably at the very least like pay attention.
One thing, you know, like while we're on the subject of where do concerns for unions intersect or overlap with people who don't give a fuck about social issues. One thing that often gets discussed when speaking about labor is police unions. Now, obviously, police have a long history of, yeah, I would say not caring about social justice, to put it lightly. You know, when you talk about racialized violence, violence against the poor, protection of capital, all that really awful shit. So like, you know, it's sometimes I feel like it's almost like threading a needle in a way that, like, you know, you want to talk about the power of a union, but the like one of the only unions that many people even understand still is there is a police union. Like, do you think that there's a way to fight the issues caused by police unions without harming other unions or just like the concept of unions? Again, this is like the only two unions most people know exist are like the police and teachers, and it's like there's I feel like those are two very different things.
I've written and spoke so much about the goddamn cop unions because it is such a huge, it's like, it's oxymoronic. The fact that police unions are able to sort of be lumped in with the labor movement, even though cops aren't workers and their unions are protection rackets. They're not proper unions. Like,
it's not a union, it's a mob. Like,
yeah. And like that impacts people's opinion about unions, like real unions. They're like, well, why would I want to organize or join something that welcomes these people who are actively trying to harm, injure, detain, or murder people like me? Like that math doesn't math. And you don't have an answer to that. like, unless the labor movement's leadership does something about the fact that cops are included in the AFL-CIO, that cops are all over the place. Like, they're in AFGE, they're in the Teamsters, there are a lot of like mainstream unions that have normal people in them that also have cops or border guards or prison guards. Like, there is so much of a conversation and so much action that needs to be taken around that issue. Like, we tried in 2020 after George Floyd's murder, when a lot of people were doing a lot of things, there was this concentrated push from grassroots, like rank and file union members at a bunch of these different unions, like AFSCME, like Cop Free AFSCME, and SEIU Drop the Cops. There were a handful of other like union specific groups, and then we had no cop unions. We had a bunch of people organizing around this and putting public pressure on the AFL-CIO to, at the very least, expel their cop union. And then like COVID started COVIDing, and like people, like things kind of shifted. Also, the AFL-CIO had commissioned this report about like racial justice and policing and what, and their findings were, no, it's fine. So
also, like, you know, they did the Democrats did defund every police department, and every city in America was burned to the ground. So
we forget about them.
There were points made on either side. Is all I'm saying. I went to Portland like 2 years ago. My dad was like, "Oh, what was it like?" And I was like, it was a city. It's fine." He's like, well, "Wasn't it like all like gone, like ruined?" I was like, "No, dude, that was one block. No buildings burned down in Portland. That didn't happen."
You can still get lots of matcha there.
I feel like I've painted my dad in some negative lights in this recording. Like, my dad is not a bad guy. He's like, maybe a little.
That just sounds like a dad.
Yeah, but like, they even just like not following stuff that close. People literally think that cities burned to the ground in 2020.
Yeah, how do you fix that? Have we gone too far?
The cities are still there. When you watch football games, they show the fucking skyline. The city's still there, dude. Like,
yeah, Minneapolis.
This aerial coverage is provided by Goodyear. It's not CGI. The city's still standing. Anyways.
Oh my god. Yeah, the cops are always gonna be an issue until we get rid of them, in whatever way that might shake out. So.
Yeah, I would honestly say that like the cops are abusing unions. That does not mean that using a union is a bad thing. Anything can be abused though, and like you said, like this operates as a protection racket for the police. It makes them a mafia. It makes them this like above the law, untouchable body. That's not, unions are supposed to make fucking life better for the people in them. Period. Like they're using a tool in a bad way.
And yet,
doesn't the tool's bad?
Yeah, and it's interesting that cop unions, it's the hard quotes because it makes you so mad. They're not just associations trying to steal our words, but
let's call them clans.
Huh?
Clans?
Clans.
The cop clans. Spell that however you would like. It really just gives up the game too, that whenever Republicans or Democrats or whoever are just like violently defunding or legislating against or actively trying to weaken organized labor in any way, there's always the carve out. Cops and firefighters. And look, everyone loves firefighters. I have no smoke for firefighters. But the cop
well, that's good, because where there's smoke, there's fire. You don't want that down your door right now. Okay.
The COPIC section, even in this latest executive order this past week, that has sent everything into a goddamn tailspin, where Trump basically is trying to tear away collective bargaining rights from like 70,000 federal workers who have active union contracts. The carve out is law enforcement, because they're special, precious little babies who can have whatever they want from daddy, but everyone else can go fuck themselves. Like, and the cops don't like labor either. Like, they don't like us. They have no interest in our conventions or our morals or our movement. They just have taken advantage of this structure that we built and use it to be fucking the worst humans alive.
Yeah.
So, keeping it light.
Okay. All right. So one of the big movements within Capitol over the last decade or so is towards contingent work, including, and you kind of see this more in white collar sectors, people working for insourcing companies where Company A will hire them to essentially work for Company B for workers who may be only on one of these sites for a certain amount of time or may have more precarious employment options. Do you feel like there's a good way for them to organize?
I think a good example that workers in that position can follow is really what the New York Taxi Workers Association has been doing for a long time, actually, because they're a union, but they haven't really gone through the whole NLRB process. They're thousands upon thousands of workers that don't have a centralized workplace, that drive for different companies. Some own medallions, some drive for Lyft and Uber. It's a really disparate workforce, but they've been able to organize around major issues and win, whether it's debt relief or legislation. You know, a couple years ago, they pretty famously held a hunger strike in New York City to get the city to assist them with just the crushing amount of debt that so many workers were dealing with, to the point where some drivers were killing themselves because they were so hopeless. So that's kind of an extreme example, but it is very much possible for workers who are doing temp work or doing contingency work, who are in like an itemized workplace. Now, you can organize, you can fight, you can win. Now, a traditional union structure isn't really gonna work because you're not in the kind of workplace that structure was built around. But there's still options, there's still tools. It's really just finding that like animating issue and finding ways to communicate and then deciding what you're gonna do about that issue. I'm trying to think of an example of the specific job you're mentioning.
So this question was written with respect to both that kind of thing where there's people like in the gig economy, but also actually like a lot of the big like scientific companies, like including like Pfizer, Unilever, kind of you name it, people that make like commercial products. What they do is called insourcing now. And so they'll hire some company to hire a bunch of workers at a much lower wage and bring them into their company, and they work on the same site as everyone else, but they don't have the same kinds of job functions. They don't have the same kinds of benefits, these kinds of things.
Oh, that's like the two-tiered system that the auto workers were fighting against in their big strike a couple years ago. But yeah, there's always something you can do.
How do you organize against a company when your office is in a building for a company that isn't the company you work for? That is a tough question. In fact, I would also like to add on the fact that how do you organize whenever your job is just an app on your phone? I'm starting to think that the people who run this economy might be working against us.
Yeah, not making it easy.
They don't want us to be able to find solidarity.
It sure does.
That's the short answer. Things are fucked, but talk to people and see how you can annoy people with power.
All right. So we're going to go to our second episode for people that are listening to this in a non-recorded setup, where you're listening on Spotify or iHeartRadio or whatever stupid fucking app you use to listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening in.
This
the
has
next
been Tattoos
episode.
and Ice Cream with Kim, Sophie, and Andrew.
Goddamn right. Anybody have anything else they'd like to plug?
Order it.
Yeah, I would say come to my ice cream truck and buy Kim's book.
Fuck yeah. We're going to put the link to the pre-order for the book in the show notes.
Things at the same time.
Oh, Devin said something.
I want my fudgy popsicle, damn it. And I'll be getting the book.
If you come to Connecticut, I'll give you a whole Fudgy the Whale.
Don't play with my emotions like this.
I'm not playing with your emotions. Come to Connecticut.
You have to get divorced first, though.
You said the words Fudgy the Whale as if that is like a common thing everybody knows so many times. Like you can't just keep talking about Fudgy the Whale.
It literally pops up in an episode of The Fucking Boys.
Yeah, Fudgy the Whale is a pretty common thing, I want to say.
Fudgy is famous.
I'm sure you know to say that, yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. Put this on the Patreon. We'll have a poll for our patrons.
Yeah.
Do you know and do you rock with Fudgy the Whale?
Do you fuck with Fudgy?
Yes.
Fudgy the Whale is a ice cream cake from Carvel.
Oh, we love Carvel.
Yeah.
Like whales?
Yeah, it's a whale-shaped cake, so you can't get a normal cake-shaped piece out of it. And
chocolate?
Yeah, it's chocolate. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's fucking fantastic. And I'm going to tell a dumb story before we stop. Around when my partner and I started dating, they were going through a divorce. And when it finalized, I bought them a cake that said, congratulations on your divorce. And it was a Fudgy. And Carvel was not having my shit.
I mean, I didn't get a cake when I divorced some fucking guy. So honestly.
Divorce Fudgies need to be a thing.
I've never even been married, and I want to get divorced just so I can get this fucking cake and see what all the hype's about.
You can come to Connecticut too and get a fucking Fudgy. I will buy you a Fudgy. Y'all can sit there and pet my poodles and eat my Fudgy.
This is the new
That
sponsor,
sounds
by the
wild
way.
with no context.
None of those
but
words are in the Bible, Sophia.
Yeah, it's not in the fucking Bible. Hail Satan, come in my house, pet my poodles, and eat some fucking fudgy.
I can't. I'm just an AI. Just import me into a body.
All right, we're gonna take an intermission, and we're gonna start the second episode. And for people that are listening to this otherwise, thank you for joining us, and wait for the next episode to come out. I don't know.
Are the real adults gonna be on the same way?
Yeah, that's right. I will have more people to disrupt.